boy, Jay Mitch. Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Jay Mitch. I'm up here today with you guys to talk about my Raminator 16S build or 16S update. This is primarily a wrenching video, so I'm gonna try to keep it short. Not a DIY. I suck at making like wrench videos, tutorials. Well, maybe I don't, but just the editing involved, I really just don't have interest in doing that type of editing. So I just kind of wanted to take you guys in the middle of where I am with the current wrenching session. So the plan was just to put dual shocks on the Raminator, dual shocks, sway bar upgrade on it, and just a couple little add-ons I wanted to do. The shock limiters, wanted to install those on the truck, and also service the shocks to, fill them up with some new fluid. So I'm gonna go 55 weight all the way around on all 4 of the shocks, well, all 8 shocks. But one of the things I think people should do before you really start wrenching is really figure out everything that's wrong with a car before you start wrenching. And that's one of the things that kind of took a while, because I was planning on wrenching on this in December. Then I found I had a broken drive cup. I didn't know if it was a drive cup or a differential in the front here, because it was just spinning and the other side wasn't spinning on the truck. So I said something's broken in there, and the common breakage is the differential outdrive, but I wasn't sure, and I just wasn't going to take it apart just to make sure. So I said I'm gonna buy the drive cups, the axles, and everything, and then that's what I did. So as you can see, here's the diff. I already pulled it out. I'll take you guys over to the bench, and when I removed all the screws to take the differential out, which seemed like a lot of screws, I watched a few videos. It required just taking off, disconnecting the steering rack, and disconnecting the screws that are related to one half of the car. So it was the steering rack. I had to remove the servo. There was a screw up top that holds both half of the discs together under the steering rack, so I just took one of the screws off there. Then there were about 10 screws holding the center diff together, pulled that off. I did wind up disconnecting both of the suspension linkages, but really only needed to probably remove this one from this side and would have been okay, but taking them both off really helped. Had to disconnect the shock. Disconnecting the shock and the sway bar just gives you a lot easier access to accessing the screws you need to take off to take the differential apart. And I'm just trying to be organized and keep things a certain way. But you will need to have the correct tools. I will say the DDM hardened hex bits for 5th scales came in clutch, and then also I think this one only goes up to 5 millimeters, but I think you actually need to have a 6 millimeter or a 5.5 millimeter hex and a 6 millimeter hex just to be covered. But the primary one you use a lot is the 4. Between the 4 and the 3 is the majority of the screws, but then you have to get on some of these larger screws, you need to get to a 5 or 6 millimeter, and then a pair of pliers or 13 millimeter or 14 millimeter wrench. But I just found that having a pair of pliers got me to where I needed to be with things so far. Also, I would also recommend using a torch before you tack any of these cars, whether you use Loctite or not. If you ran these cars and it's been a while since you worked on them, maybe you ran them, you might have stored them over the winter in the basement or a garage, moisture tends to attack some of this hardware. So it's always good to keep a torch nearby because you don't want to strip out anything. And I ran into a couple of, luckily for me, it was a little light rust. Maybe 1 or 2 screws were a little rusted from the last time I ran. But the majority of the time there was Loctite involved. As I didn't build this truck, I know the guy who built it, but just the lessons that I always keep in mind. Use some use some use your torch when you're taking off stuff. So to get to this point, I had to take that's what I had to do. I had to remove half the things that are related. I had to, of course, remove the front diff cover or protector, skid, whatever you want to call that thing. And then the diff came out in half. And when I removed it, I did see that luckily my axle did not break. The breakage occurred on my outdrive, on my diff outdrive, and I'll show you guys the broken outdrive. So here's the broken outdrive. It's snapped right there, and this is a common breakage. Now, when you're doing this, you got a couple options. You can replace with the new V4 diffs, was what I thought about, but also they make upgraded drive cups. So I said, let me be cheap and go with the upgraded drive cups for now. And working on this diff was just like any other diff, you know. Got to take the screws off. Use some if there's Loctite involved, you want to go ahead and you know, use your torch and take them off. I think these were 2.5 millimeter hex screws. Hex bits on there, and that was it. But this is the upgraded drive cup number, RMT157. Just 2 cups, easy to do. When I took this apart, you may lose some differential fluid. I'll just top mine off with 1 million at the time. So that was that for the, you know, the diff. So now this is a perfect time, since this car is so big. There's things that I'm going to do on mine that maybe you should consider for yours. And I'll bring you guys back. Either it'll probably be the next video, because I want to take my time and make sure I don't miss anything. But when I do it, I'll come back and just kind of talk about the install of the remaining items that I'm going to do. So as I mentioned, I am going to be adding on the additional, I'm going to be running 2 shocks on each corner. These are the upgraded V3 shocks. So I'm going to run a V3 and a V2 shock on each corner, as you see people doing a lot of these videos. So that's what we're going to do. Hopefully that'll alleviate some of the stress and hopefully help this baby handle, stay a little bit more planted, because it likes to bounce. So we'll figure that out. And these shocks are already filled with fluid, and I'm not quite sure what they are from the factory, but I know that I'm going to change them out. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll have fun there. I'm going to put 55 weight in all the corners, and hopefully that's the right call. So we got the shocks I'm going to install along with updated fluids. Also, let me see what else we got. So also we're going to do the V4 steering rack install. So we're going to change out the old linkages here and install this new V4 linkage. It's supposed to be a lot simpler, you know, less complicated setup. So I'm looking forward to doing that. We're going to change these the suspension straps, the limiting straps. We're going to change those. There's Primal makes a metal suspension limiter thread, so I'm going to change these nylon ones out to that. Hopefully we'll get some strength savings there. And I'm gonna really try to figure out the suspension, try to keep this front even, and on the back even as well. So we'll see, we'll put a little tension on it so they just don't bottom out, and we'll go from there. What else are we going to do? Oh, the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to, one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to, and shout out to my homie Danny Lou, and shout out to Arthur Singh from Team Vidavon. I am going to be putting on the sway bar kits, the upgraded sway bar kit for Team Vidavon on the front and the rear of this bad boy, just to adjust the handling of this car. And then I'm going to run the mess out of this car. I'm going to do some nice content. I ain't going to say a lot of content, and that's because this thing, if people who know who runs it, it is huge. It is not an easy RC to transport. You rather probably have a motorcycle. I mean, not a motorcycle. You rather have rather have a pickup to transport this bad boy. I usually have to use my pickup. I had to take it apart to get it in the truck. And I gotta put it back together and then do the same thing to get it back in the house. It's not the easiest RC to handle, but I think I'm gonna run it for the rest of the season, and then I'll probably put it up for sale at some point. But I was tempted to sell it over the winter now, but I want to actually get this car running to a place where I like it, and then make a decision if I'm going to sell it or not. It's just the sheer size of the truck. The one thing I like about the Raminators, though, it seems like you can continually upgrade these, right? You can have a V1 and update it to a V2, and then V2 to V3, and V3 to V4. Like, you can keep on transforming the platform, which I like a lot. So right now, this was technically a V2, but then it was upgraded to a V3 with the exception of the shocks, by getting the extended suspension. And now I'm kind of going to take it to like a V3.5, because I didn't get the full V4 diffs that they have. They have a new set of beefed up V4 diffs. I didn't go that route. Instead, I just got the beefed up diff cups. So it's going to be like a V3.5, a V4.5, because I'm going to go ahead and install the steering rack. And that's going to be it. But anyway, just wanted to give you guys some content and let you guys see what I had going on with the Raminator, run my mouth to you guys a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. I'm going to say thank y'all so much for y'all time and y'all attention. Shout out and rest in peace to my homie Dave Hubbard. Shout out to the homie Big Willie. Shout out to Ted. Shout out to Adam at RC Discount. Shout out to Arthur Singh and Danny Liu at Team Vitavine for keeping your mans laced. And shout out to the homies Big Gap, Doc, Super Dave, Ted, Rattle Can, Game Dog, 75 Game Dog, Big Reg, and the crew that we do the Sunday night lives every Sunday night at 9-10 p.m. Not sure about this upcoming weekend because it's Easter. So I'm not sure if it's going to happen this Sunday. It should, though. But just in case it doesn't, just wanted to keep you guys in the loop there. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and end this thing. Y'all be good now. Peace. GoPro, stop recording.